The first time Ambassador Jonah Reed set foot on Xylaris Prime, he thought the stories were exaggerations. They weren't. The sky itself shimmered with living light, vast aurora-like currents drifting between floating crystal spires. The capital city rose organically from the planet's surface, grown rather than built, its architecture shaped by centuries of bioengineering and cultural tradition. Everything about the world spoke of age, power, and careful restraint. And at the heart of it all stood the Palace of Resonance, home to Queen Altheria of the Xylari Dominion. Jonah adjusted the collar of his formal envoy uniform and exhaled slowly. Just another diplomatic visit, he told himself. Just another alien court. He had no idea his life was about to be rewritten. Humanity's relationship with the Xylari had always been complicated. They were ancient, technologically superior, and famously cautious. While they did not look down on humanity, they regarded humans the way one might regard a clever but unpredictable younger species, useful, intriguing, and slightly dangerous. Jonah had been part of the first-contact generation. Years ago, he had served as a cultural liaison during early negotiations, spending months on Xylaris Prime learning their customs, language, and social rituals. He had also met the Queen. Back then, Altheria had been newly crowned, sharp-eyed, reserved, and under immense pressure from rival factions within her empire. Jonah remembered long nights of negotiation, shared meals, philosophical debates about governance and responsibility. They had respected each other, trusted each other, and then he had gone home. That was 7 years ago. Now he stood once more in the palace, escorted by honor guards whose crystalline armor hummed softly with restrained energy. The purpose of his visit was routine on paper: renewed trade agreements, joint research initiatives, border security coordination. But something felt off. The servants were tense. The guard's posture was rigid, not ceremonial. And beneath it all, Jonah felt a strange, unplaceable sense of anticipation. The throne room doors parted soundlessly. Queen Altheria sat upon a dais grown from living crystal, radiant as ever. Her tall, elegant form glowed faintly with bioluminescent markings along her arms and neck, shifting subtly with her emotional state. She looked at Jonah. For just a fraction of a second, her composure faltered. "Ambassador Reed," she said, her voice calm, melodic, and layered with harmonics that resonated through the hall. "You have returned." Jonah bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty. It's good to see you again." Her gaze lingered on him longer than protocol dictated. "Approach," she said. As Jonah stepped forward, he noticed movement beside the throne. A child. At first glance, the child appeared fully Xylari, small, luminous, with soft crystalline ridges along the temples and faintly glowing eyes. They couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 by human standards. The child had been sitting quietly, observing the proceedings with intense focus. Then their eyes locked onto Jonah. The effect was immediate. The child's eyes widened. Their bioluminescent patterns flared bright gold. They pointed directly at him. "That's my dad." The throne room exploded into chaos. Gasps echoed from courtiers and advisors. Guards shifted, hands moving toward weapons before stopping themselves in confusion. Several ministers began speaking at once in rapid Xylari dialect. Jonah froze. What?" he said intelligently. The child hopped off the dais and marched straight toward him, completely unconcerned with decorum. They stopped inches away, tilted their head, and studied his face with fascination. "Yep," the child said confidently. "That's him." Jonah looked up helplessly at the Queen. Altheria had gone very, very still. "Silence," she commanded, her voice resonating with undeniable authority. The room obeyed. She rose from her throne and descended slowly, her gaze never leaving Jonah. When she reached the child, she placed a gentle hand on their shoulder. "Lyrian," she said softly, "you are certain?" The child nodded vigorously. "I feel it. Same resonance. Same pattern." Jonah blinked. Resonance. Altheria closed her eyes briefly. Then she looked at him. "Ambassador Reed," she said, carefully, "we have much to discuss." They were ushered into a private chamber, shielded, soundproofed, and warded against surveillance. Jonah sat stiffly across from Altheria, the child perched happily beside her, swinging their legs. "I need you to explain," Jonah said, running a hand through his hair. "Because as far as I know, I don't have any children on any planet." Altheria studied him with an expression he had never seen before, conflicted, cautious, and vulnerable. "7 cycles ago," she began, "during your previous assignment, you and I shared a deep neural resonance." Jonah's stomach dropped. "You mean our compatibility tests?" he asked. "The ones meant to synchronize diplomatic envoys?" "Yes," she said. "For humans, they are symbolic. For Xylari, they are not." She gestured to Lyrian. "Our species reproduces through resonance alignment, emotional, cognitive, and biological synchronization. It is rare and permanent." Jonah stared at the child. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that a diplomatic bonding exercise accidentally resulted in a child?" Altheria finished quietly. Lyrian grinned. "Hi, Dad." Jonah didn't faint. That alone felt like an accomplishment. "You never told me," he said, voice tight. "I did not know," Altheria replied. "The resonance took time to manifest. By the time I was certain, you had already returned to your world." She looked away briefly. "And I feared what the revelation would mean. For you. For us." Jonah exhaled sharply. "So you just decided not to say anything?" "I chose to protect my child," she said, meeting his eyes. "And my empire." Lyrian frowned. "Mom, he's not mad. He's just confused." Jonah snorted despite himself. "That's very accurate." The days that followed were the most surreal of Jonah's life. Genetic analysis confirmed it. Human DNA intertwined seamlessly with Xylari biostructures in a way no scientist had predicted possible. Lyrian was healthy, brilliant, and possessed an unusual dual resonance that fascinated researchers across the Dominion. Politically, the implications were explosive. A human had fathered the heir to the Xylari throne. Some factions saw it as an abomination. Others saw it as destiny. A few saw it as a strategic nightmare. Jonah saw a kid who insisted on holding his hand during palace tours. "Do humans really eat plants that scream when you cut them?" Lyrian asked one afternoon. "They don't scream," Jonah said. "We just pretend they don't." Lyrian considered this. "Humans are weird." "Kid, you have no idea." Queen Altheria watched them together with an expression Jonah couldn't quite read. "You don't regret it?" he asked her one evening as they stood overlooking the glowing city. "Lyrian," she asked. "No," Jonah clarified. "Us. Me." She was silent for a long moment. "I regret only that I did not give you the choice," she said. "But I do not regret what we created." Jonah nodded slowly. "I wish you'd trusted me." "I do now," she said softly. The real test came when the High Council convened. The chamber was immense, filled with ancient beings whose lifespans measured centuries. Their judgment carried the weight of history. The presence of a human progenitor destabilizes succession, one elder intoned.